Hello everyone, Pineaaronapple here with the next episode of the amazing digital circus. I ended up liking episode 1 a fair bit, but it was only the pilot. This series is continued by Glitch and seems to keep their pretty good voice cast. And a few hints to an overarching narrative. But will this episode hold up with the pilot? Well, let's take a look into episode 2, Candy Carrier Chaos. The episode starts with a pseudo-recap of the last episode within Pomni's nightmares, a pretty effective demonstration of her dealing with the horrific implications of last episode. And it feels pretty horrifying, not really scary, but in the same way that nightmare scene in Toy Story 2 was slightly traumatizing as a kid.
I don't want to play with you anymore.
But the tone of the series as a whole seems to be set, as we go from that nightmare immediately to slapstick comedy. Ragatha attempts to coax Pomni out of her room, establishing pretty naturally after the time between episodes, though this takes place the next day from the pilot, and Ragatha is pretty chill about the whole leaving her for dead thing, and Pomni is clearly still struggling, not helped by Kane's insistence on another adventure. And I must say, for what this is, the animation quality and definition is pretty great still. Today's adventure is titled the same as the episode, as some Candy Kingdom world has been robbed of its syrup, and it seems they've embraced the whole "what if it were written by Vivzy Pop" meme, since the first joke to come out of Bubbles' mouth is a basic, yet still funny censoring joke.
Very sticky indeed!
Sounds
Bubble, you can't say that.
We may not see as much of Kane in this episode, but him and Bubble are still pretty on point comedically. Zooble easily wants nothing to do with the adventure, even with Kane's tempting with a new AI model, but Pomni is still suffering from the existential weight of it all.
well.
Why are you all just standing there? The Candy Kingdom needs you now!
The cast are shoved into the candy world, lauded by the townsfolk, making Kinga and Gangle a fair lot happier than I've seen them. But of course it doesn't last long.
Yeah, this place is great.
Look! It's the princess!
The Candy Princess, played by Vera Tan, is happy to see them, thinking them sent by God or just Kane, but since they're AI, I suppose it would be the same thing. And even with Pomni being a downer, she gives them a key to the kingdom and a rig. Jack's forcing Gangle to drive, and now is probably a good time to bring up this episode's main controversy, Jax himself. Jax is still voiced by Michael Kovac, but there was something that me and a lot of others picked up on. He is just so much more hateable this episode. Sure, he wasn't nice in any respect last time, but he is explicitly more nasty this episode. And it's less buffered by the comedy this go around, making him feel a lot more unpleasant. It may not be a new thing like people are claiming, but it is a noticeable change, and one that I dislike. I guess it just comes down to me liking the characters he torments, like Gangle, more than him. We get to see our villains, these three Aussie gummy lizards, having stolen the syrup to take back their village to help the people there. The leader, Gummy Goo, played by Jack Hawkins, the same as Chad the Lanky, and Max the Plump, played by Hamish Plagamars. Jax manages to find weapons and throws Pomni between the trucks.
Jax, you
Kinga tries his best to help, but Pomni ends up on the other truck, while Chunky gets dragged behind with some cleverly used effects. Blizzards go into more rocky terrain and Gangle is forced to follow, once again belittled by Jax.
Aren't you supposed to be submissive and agreeable? Move it!
The lizards get a lot of good effects and animation gags, while Jax continues to ruin everything, threatening Gangle to their detriment, impaling Ragatha, and thanks to Kinga's attempt to help, their truck lands in the nearby river. And both Pomni and Gummy Goo are glitched into the back rooms, or a commonplace thing in many video games, an asset room, where the assets are loaded in to be used elsewhere, and it's used pretty well here, not only in exploring Gummy Goo's character and building a rapport with Pomni, the atmosphere and the haunting shots are not only creative, but effective in an existential horror sort of way. Nothing inherently terrifying, but the way the characters relate to it, added to the aspects I mentioned before, make Gummy Goo's realization even more haunting. He realizes the fact that he is an AI, that his world in the cosmic scheme doesn't exist, and Pomni attempts to plan a way out. Meanwhile, the others are apparently still in the river, although it turns out it's a living creature ready to gobble them up. A creature named as it is, the Fudge. but it's a candy cannibal that was exiled for, well, eating the townsfolk.
Is it really murder if it's delicious? Answer me that.
You make a great point.
No, bad point.
But unfortunately, Jack says the town key and leaves the affection on thick, getting free and completing their mission in return for an allowance to get the candy cannibal back inside the city. Back in the void, Pomni tries to cheer Gummigoo up as he struggles with his reality. Pomni appeals to his sense of camaraderie and offers him a ride back to the circus, instead of deletion once they leave, him eventually agreeing, but refusing to tell his friends, saving them from the sadness of their impending doom. Pomni uses the video game logic that got them into this mess to launch themselves through the layers of void and teapots all the way to the surface, colliding with the rest of the group as Ragatha despairs her strained relationship with Pomni. After some colourful vomit,
couldn't keep it in, could
they take the trucks back to the kingdom, and the crew along with Gummigoo head back. But unfortunately for the candy people, the fudge is descending. Now, back in the circus, Gummigoo is immediately executed.
So this is the circus, huh? I could get used to this.
Oh, looks like one of these guys made it through.
Wait, what?
Well, that was fucked up. I just started to like him. Kane's a bitch.
Well, I'm gonna go drink water. It's been a while since I've done that.
I am your bitch.
Now that the adventure's over, it's time for Korthmo's funeral, which isn't as impactful of a final scene as the last episodes, but it is nice. An emotional scene with little dialogue, communicating all its messaging through the visuals. As coming together for the funeral, Pomni is clearly one stop closer to not only accepting her fate, but becoming close with the rest. As we go back to her nightmare, and instead of falling into the void, we see hands stretching out to grab her, as an orchestrated version of the show's theme plays. We get one last look at the circus, and the episode goes to black. Well, I'm not sure if I liked that as much as the pilot, but there was a lot of great stuff here. The progression of Pomni's character, both with the circus inhabitants and Gummigoo, is pretty well done, and is a good continuation from last episode. Gummigoo and his friends were very good for comedy, so when Gummigoo switches to his depressive and more introspective state, it hits a lot more effectively. While the candy world was well realised, the inhabitants at large just being dolls is thematic, but is visually a little boring. And while the fudge was a creative idea and the performance had some fun moments, I wasn't interested in the candy people's plight beyond the lizards. Like I said before, a lot of people agree with me, Jax was more insufferable this episode, as he put Ragatha, Pomni and Gangle through shit. And while Ragatha doesn't get much character beyond leaving fuel for people on the internet to ship her with Pomni, and Gangle served her purpose as a punching bag, but when it happens to such a degree to a sympathetic character, it becomes a lot like Butters type comedy, but a little more frustrating. I say all of that, but the episode is written and performed pretty well, both in creativity and dialogue. It looks great, and the purely emotional scenes, like with Gummigoo in the back rooms and Pomni smiling at the end, are very well done. So with its ups and downs, I think I may have liked the pilot more for what it did, but this episode deserves to be put on the same level as the pilot, a 6.5 out of 10. Thank you very so much for watching my review of episode 2 of The Amazing Digital Circus. It may sound a little different than usual as I'm recording this the chance that I get, which happens to be when I'm very tired and hungover. Please like the video if you liked it, comment down below if you wish, type something in there if there's something you want me to check out on the channel, and consider subscribing to the channel, and if you do, ring that notification bell so you're told every single time that I make an upload. Once again, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next review. Bye!
Toast. A little piece of toast, because there's so much to choose from. There's brown bread, white bread, all sorts of wholemeal bread. It comes in funny packages with writing on the side.